In the spring of 1945, the Third Reich was reduced to smoking rubble. The thousand-year empire was burning, but inside the minds of the German High Command, and specifically the fanatical leadership of the Waffen-SS, a bizarre psychological delusion persisted. For centuries, European warfare had operated on a strict class system. Even after committing unspeakable atrocities, the German officer class believed they belonged to a universal brotherhood of arms. They believed that surrender was a formal diplomatic ceremony. In their minds, a captured SS general was not a criminal. He was a VIP. He expected his captors to stand at attention, offer him a crisp salute, shake his hand, and perhaps share a glass of cognac while discussing the finer points of tank tactics. But as these elite commanders emerged from their bunkers to surrender, or they collided with a military force that fundamentally despised everything they stood for, the United States Army. And the American GWI was about to give the SS a brutal lesson in reality. To understand the American reaction, you have to understand the American soldier of 1945. The US Army was not a breeding ground for aristocratic warlords. The men wearing olive drab were citizens first and soldiers second. They were school teachers from Ohio, plumbers from Brooklyn, and farmers from Texas. They had put on a uniform to do a dirty, violent job, and they wanted to go home. They did not worship rank, and they certainly did not worship the European tradition of military nobility. By the time the Americans crossed the Rhine, they had fought through the frozen hell of the Ardennes, seen their friends torn apart by artillery, and, as most importantly, they had begun liberating the concentration camps. To the American GI, the men with the silver death's head pins on their collars weren't honorable adversaries. They were arrogant, sadistic thugs in tailored suits. As the war ended, thousands of high-ranking German officers drove themselves into American lines to avoid being captured by the vengeful Soviet Red Army. Accounts from the front lines repeatedly highlight the same absurd scenario. A pristine Mercedes staff car would pull up to an American checkpoint. Out would step a towering SS Obergruppenführer, dressed immaculately in a leather trench coat, his chest dripping with iron crosses and oak leaves. He would look down his nose at the exhausted, mud-covered 19-year-old American private guarding the road. Speaking in perfect aristocratic English, where the SS general would demand to be taken immediately to an American commander of equal rank. He would demand a salute. He would demand to keep his personal sidearm as a matter of honor. The American response was universally jarring. Instead of snapping to attention, the GIs usually pointed an M1 Garand at the general's chest and told him to shut his mouth. There were no salutes. There were no diplomatic handshakes. Instead, the Americans engaged in a practice that absolutely infuriated the German High Command: aggressive souvenir hunting. To a German general, the Knight's Cross around his neck was a sacred relic of the fatherland. To an American private, it was a piece of tin that he could trade for 2 bottles of French Scotch or mail back to his little brother in Chicago. When an SS general demanded protocol, the GIs would simply strip him. They took his Luger. They took his ceremonial daggers. They ripped the medals off his chest, and they even stole the custom-made binoculars from his neck. The general wasn't treated as a peer. He was treated as a loot drop. For the SS officers, this was a psychological devastation worse than losing a battle. They were being stripped of their mythology. The master race was being manhandled, mocked, and robbed by 19-year-old draftees chewing spearmint gum. This absolute lack of respect wasn't just a phenomenon among the lower ranks. It came straight from the very top. Throughout military history, the surrender of an enemy army usually concluded with the commanding generals exchanging a solemn salute and a handshake. But Supreme Allied Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower refused to play the gentleman's game. Eisenhower harbored a deep, visceral hatred for the Nazi regime. When the time came for the unconditional surrender of the German forces at Reims, Eisenhower refused to even be in the same room as the German delegation until the documents were signed. When the German general, Alfred Jodl, finished signing away the Third Reich, he expected the traditional handshake from Eisenhower. Eisenhower refused. He issued a strict non-fraternization order. He made it abundantly clear to his staff, "You do not smile at them, you do not salute them, and you absolutely do not shake their hands." They were the architects of a nightmare, and they were to be treated with cold, bureaucratic contempt. When men like Hermann Göring and top SS officials surrendered, they initially brought massive entourages, on valets and custom-made luggage, expecting to live in luxurious house arrest. The Americans quickly transferred them to stark, concrete prison cells. They forced them to eat standard army rations out of tin mess kits. They made them clean their own toilets. Conclusion: the end of the myth. The SS had built their entire identity on the illusion of superiority. They believed their uniforms, their ranks, and their bloodlines demanded fear and respect from the entire world. But when they demanded a salute from the American GIs, they found out the hard way that their mythology was worthless. The Americans didn't fear them, and they certainly didn't respect them. By stripping them of their medals, refusing their handshakes, and tossing them into the back of transport trucks like common criminals, the American soldiers did more than just win the war. They shattered the arrogance of the Nazi elite, proving that beneath the tailored uniforms and the terrifying reputation, they were nothing but ordinary, defeated men.